Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Defining Your Niche podcast. I am your host, Russell Narcisov, and I am really excited about today's guest, Joe Downs. He is a CEO of a Bellrose Group. He's also someone who has reinvented himself multiple times across different industries and still continues to push the boundary of what's possible in commercial real estate. Joe has built a strong reputation in the self-storage space. And now he's taken things a step further with Pro Storage, which we're going to talk about. This really innovative mix of self-storage and flex that's built for modern small businesses. We're going to talk about how he got here, what he's building, and why it matters. Joe, thank you for being here, man.
Russell, thank you so much for having me. So great to see you. And I love this podcast because I love niches or niches. I don't know what the right way to say it is, but
I don't know either.
I love it. That's where I thrive. That's where I have fun. I think that's where more people can make the most impact and have creativity and create opportunity and create value. Because if you're outside the niche, not that you can't make a lot of money, but you're now in a more commoditized business, and it's about who can either get there first, be better, faster, stronger, whatever. And you might not always win that game. But in the niche world, you get to kind of forge your own path and create your own destiny. And it's not without potholes, but sorry, I don't want to steal your podcast. I love, this is the first podcast that I've been on that has this type of focus.
No.
I just wanted to compliment you and say I love it.
I appreciate it, man. You're the star of today's Defining Your Niche. And we're going to talk specifically about your niche. So Joe, take a couple of minutes and tell us about yourself, tell us about Bellrose Group, and tell us about your niche.
Yeah, well, Russell, not unlike yourself, we built Bellrose Group in the self-storage. I don't think self-storage is a niche at this point. I think it's a well-documented, commoditized, part of commercial real estate. But we built our company there, much like you. And as we started to compete in that world, what we realized were a number of things. One, there's a lot of niches within self-storage. And two, we have a saying that I've stolen that I love is, if you want to beat Tiger Woods, you can, just don't play him in golf. And you know as well as I do, playing Tiger Woods in golf is trying to compete with the REITs and the institutional players in self-storage. So that leads you to more of a niche within self-storage. And that niche where, we operate, I'm assuming, in a very similar tangential space to you in that. And that was the nuts and bolts, the blocking and tackling of the Bellrose Group. That's what we do. Within that, Russell, and I know you've seen these niches as well, you start to identify, just being in the space, some other really cool things you can do, like boat and RV storage, or IOS, industrial outdoor storage, or even the valet storage, where it's still storage, but you're parking cars indoors, for instance. So it's parking. Is it parking? Is it storage? Is it both? Is it, this hybrid? And then, there's niches we haven't gone into, like art collectible, that kind of high end, vault type of storage where we're not just climate control, but you're climate control with backup systems because you're storing art and wine and all that stuff. And we haven't gone there yet, but we did find what we think is a really cool niche. And that's what we've coined as Pro Storage.
I love the name, by the way. I think you should trademark that name. It's,
I wanted to, Russell, and we started that process, but we realized quickly that the cloud storage, the digital cloud storage guys, already have that. In fact, one of them is called Pro Storage. So they beat us to the punch there. But that said, what never felt right, and here's the backstory. In our self-storage journey, we bought a facility in Wilmington, North Carolina that was not like all the others. We underwrote it like self-storage because we didn't know how to underwrite it any other way. But in doing our due diligence in it, what we realized was, hey, this was, in fact, even the seller, who was a plumber by trade, called it Contractor Storage. And he built it for himself and his buddies, and then it just grew from there. So we're not pretending to have invented the concept. We're not at all. But I'll come back to that later. But what we found was that in this facility, we had contractors, we had businesses, small businesses that weren't contractors. And then we had boat and RV owners, like a healthy amount, like 20%.
Right.
And then we had some guys with like toy cars, right? Where it's like their hangout and they work on their, Ferrari or whatever. So when you look at it, and then you add to it the changing landscape with the e-commerce and how we all our goods are delivered to our door today. So that whole paradigm has changed in how consumers obtain their goods.
Right.
And they're now come through major regional facilities we've all seen that Amazon and Walmart are having built or build themselves. And then they go from there to more regional warehouses. Well, that that whole paradigm shift has put this downward pressure on who used to lease those 20 to 50 to 100,000 square foot warehouses. They're getting displaced. So you had this like paradigm shift happening. At the same time, we have this facility and we're looking at it going, this is the greatest facility we've ever owned from a management standpoint. Nobody's ever late. Just look at who stores in self-storage, right? Russell, you're a tenant in one of my facilities, right? Let's say.
Right.
You've got your treasures in a 10 by 10. You stop paying, I go to auction them off. They're not worth much. You know that, right?
What's the worst case scenario for me? Right.
To you, they're priceless. To the market, there's a price and it doesn't fetch much, right? That whole concept is flipped when you go to the pro storage or what we were buying, which was contractor storage. They're storing tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory, equipment,
That's a
boats,
difference.
RVs. Like they don't not pay because the consequences are real. If it was that bad, they would just liquidate whatever they have and pay us off, right? So with that in mind, the idea was, wow, there's something here. We need to understand what we have and then go build it elsewhere. But we didn't want to call it contractor storage because that felt like it would alienate the boats and RVs and the businesses.
And
And
everyone
so
else, right?
we went through iteration. And by the way, I've seen these around the country called monster storage, big stuff storage. Oh, okay, that kind of says everything, but didn't feel like a name you'd scale. And while we haven't, we don't have the patent on the idea, neither did Home Depot on the hardware store, but they certainly scaled it and made it a national brand. And that's what we're hoping to do with the brand we came up with. But we had to create the name for the industry first. And hopefully I'm starting to, what warmed my heart, Russell, was at our last mastermind. I don't know if you were involved in the conversation, but I walked by a conversation and I heard people absolutely talking about pro storage as it just rolled off their tongue like it was boat and RV storage or self storage. And I was like, yes, it's fine. I know that's within our group. We're in the same mastermind if you haven't figured that out
Yeah.
listening, but self storage mastermind. But it warmed my heart to hear people talking about pro storage as if it had always existed. And within that, that's great because I think there's going to be a growing demand for this everywhere. And we just want to be, hopefully one of the pioneers of a brand name, and our brand name is Store Pro.
Well, you
So
definitely are. You definitely are. I think you're leading the charge when it comes to pro storage. But Joe, let's unpack a couple of things what you just said. Can you define contractor/pro storage? What is it? What makes it a pro storage versus a regular storage? Is it a size? Is it a location? Is it amenities? What is it about pro storage that lets it stand out from the competition?
great question. Let me put. So if we're bowling here, you just put up the left bumper rail, which was self storage. What makes it not that? I'm going to add the right bumper rail, if you will, which is small bay flex, because it's not that either. It kind of sits between the two. So in self storage, Russell, we know the most popular unit size is a 10 by 10,
Right.
which is 10 feet deep and 10 feet wide with an 8-foot ceiling. In pro storage, and that's 100 square feet. And I don't know, but your facilities, you probably have units that are 200 square feet. Maybe you have a couple that are 300 square feet. Maybe you have one even more, but you could count on one hand how many you have, right?
Correct.
That are that size. In pro storage, our smallest unit size is 500 square feet, or maybe it's 450. I forget the exact number.
Okay.
We've tweaked the model a little. Let's say it's 450. Our largest is 1,000 square feet. Your ceiling in a 10 by 10 in self storage is 8 feet,
Right.
90% of the time. In pro storage, it's 14 feet. The door is 12 and a
Okay.
half feet. In self-storage, the door is 7.5 feet. You can drive a truck with ladders on. In fact, if you can drive on a highway, whatever you can drive on, legally drive on a highway and clear whatever the highway signs are, you can drive into one of our units. That's how they're
Awesome.
built. They're
Okay.
12 to 15 feet wide. They're 20, 25, 40, 50 feet deep, depending on the total square footage of the unit size. So physically, that's how they're different than self-storage. How they're similar to self-storage, it looks like it from an aerial. As a drive-by, it looks exactly like it. You would almost barely tell the difference unless you had a reference point, like a human standing in front of the door or a car or a truck or something. We are very similar in contracts, month to month, right?
Right.
Management, very similar. We serve a lot of the same purposes as self-storage, except it's just everything's bigger. So it is designed for the convenience of businesses, but with the same flexibility of the month to month for consumer. Then on the right, can I finish off the right guardrail, the small bay flex?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Very similar to what small bay flex serves in terms of businesses, in terms of the size of the units. Although small bay flex tends to get you'll see that stretch to 5,000 square feet in unit size, down to our unit size for sure. Maybe not as small as 500, but down to 1,000. So you have some overlap there in terms of use of purpose for businesses, but we don't have an office or a bathroom in every unit. We have a community bathroom in the facility, but we don't have a bathroom in the unit. No one's working in our units. So we serve a lot of the same function without going the last 20 yards. We don't go into the red zone of this is where you also work and you sit all day and you have a bathroom there, which means they cost less to build and it's a different use and occupancy. So we kind of sit between the two.
It seems to be like this is a hybrid between the self-storage and the flex. But since it's a hybrid, what do you think the market, will the market accept this asset class as a standalone asset class? Now, like you mentioned, the idea came up from you guys purchasing a facility where I would assume it was a self-storage facility that happened to have larger units. We also own a substantial facility in Maine where it just happened to have 30 units of, I believe it's 13 by 30 with 16 feet high ceilings. And we noticed that we never have any issues with those units being rented. So there is demand for it. So we were kind of watching that and seeing you guys leading the charge in terms of the of bringing this to the forefront of the industry. It makes a very interesting deal for us. But do you think there is a level of expectancy or level of hesitancy in the industry when it comes to a hybrid, and when you bring two asset classes together, or it's becoming a mainstream as well?
Well, I don't know if it's becoming mainstream. That's what we hope to make it. All of those questions are questions that we had because it's, pioneers can make a lot of money. They could also be shot and killed, right? If you go with the traditional definition of the pioneer.
Right.
So that's a very scary situation to be in. One other qualifier I'd add to it before I answer your question is I didn't finish off this where we're different than small bay flex. We're different in that we don't have the office, but we're also different in that we're not asking people to sign 3-year leases that are triple net. So it's a much easier, flexible way to start a business, grow a business, expand a business. So we are trying to be really business friendly in that end. That's not without its risks to us, for sure. How did we get over becoming or taking on the pioneer role? I don't know why, Russell, but for whatever reason, where we bought our facility in Wilmington, North Carolina is like a Petri dish for this product type. We are not the only ones there.
Oh, really?
We are 60,000 out of 250 to 300,000 square feet, depending on how alike you want to consider the rest of the square footage. There's 250-ish, maybe it's 240, 250, something like that. That is exactly like what we own there and exactly like what we're building. In fact, actually what we own there is, I would call it Class C. We're building more of a Class A product. Right. And that's just in the finishes. And that's because when it was built and it's just older and tired and what we're building is new. And they force you to have these nice facades and all that stuff. So it just looks like a Class A product. Going to function exactly the same though. So we have this Petri dish that we get to study. And what we know is, and we have a leg up because we own one of the bacteria. I don't know.
Right.
I should not go down a medical biological example here because I'm going to fall flat because that was not my strength. That probably just sounds stupid by saying bacteria, but
Uh,
we are one of the items you can study in the Petri dish. And
specimens.
specimens, I don't know. I'm way out of my lane here. But it is an advantage that we know what we have. We know who the customers are. We know what the customer mix can and should look like. Not that it can't be different in different markets, but we at least have an idea. We know how far they travel. We know what they'll pay. We've pushed them on price. So we have a leg up, and we're doing all this in a market with competition. And in a market, then we can measure what, for instance, one of the first questions I had was, if we take this to other markets, how do we know that it'll lease up? And the answer is because there's no supply index anywhere, just like boat and RV facilities. How do you know?
Right.
Those folks
That
will
was
tell you, if you
one of the
build it, they
questions that
will
I was going to
come.
ask. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's great. If you build it, they will come. But I can't sell that to my lender or my investors. If you build it, they will come. Right? That doesn't fly. But what I can do is say, look, in Wilmington, it's 300,000 square feet of this product. Close enough to call it 300,000. Close enough product. And there's a little less than 300,000 people. Call it 300,000. So I don't know what the supply index is, Russell, but I know it's at least one. Because
For sure.
we're all full, right? And that's just one measurement. And then we're looking at other ways to measure how many different types of businesses, how many businesses within X amount of miles or minutes or whatever. So we weren't totally blind in selecting Greenville as our first market to go vertical and Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey is our second. Excuse me. We weren't totally blind there. We have really good reasons to believe they work more than just a supply index, which might be wrong. Supply index in Greenville might be 3, 4. I don't know. All I know is there's around 300,000 people in Greenville, and we're only introducing 90,000 square feet. So we know we've got room to grow.
Here's how I think you're on the right track, and this is why I think you're on the right track. Speaking from a personal experience, so here in Florida, I recently moved. I don't know if you know about a year and a half ago, I moved from very cold and snowy New York to a beautiful Southwest Florida. And in anticipation of that, I started to look at self-storage facilities here in Southwest Florida. And one example that I'm going to give you is quite interesting. I look at the facility, and there were 95% occupied, asking price such and such, cap rate this and the other. And I made an offer. It didn't go anywhere. We got outbid, but the facility was taken off the market. Almost 2 years later, the facility came back on the market, but today it wasn't a self-storage facility. It was a contractor unit facility. They got rid of all the privately rented units, and they were smaller. They were between 150 to 250, 300 square feet. And they re-rented them. They re-tenanted them to contractors.
Are they self-storage size? Are they 8 foot
They
ceiling?
are self-storage size, correct.
Case in
10
point,
by 10, 10 by 15, 10 by 20, correct.
There's a demand for this everywhere for contractors and businesses.
That's the case I'm trying to build for you.
Yeah,
but not only that, not only demand. Now, since they no longer rent to the private individuals, they renting to businesses, they're able to charge more. Facility generates higher income, higher NOI. Now, facility was valued at a completely different number. So once again, I think the point, you're on the right track where there was definitely demand for it. And even the regular facility is being converted from a self-storage facility to a pro storage, which you call a pro storage.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, Russell, if you opened up across the street with actual pro storage with, where you could drive your truck in and leave it there overnight, especially where you are, all residential growth is HOA. No one's able to park their plumbing van, contractor van in that HOA overnight.
The boat, yes.
So where are those guys parking those vehicles? If you offered a place for them to leave the vehicle overnight, which is safe and secure as well, I mean, you're the only game in town doing it. And that's my point. These don't really exist in most places.
Right. Which brings me to the next question. How does the economic of pro storage differ from the traditional self-storage and pure flex? How do you come up with rental rates? What is it based on?
Well, you're trying to, so there's the launch, which is we're in right now. And then I think there will be a market normalization in a few years. And that might be different everywhere
Right.
because it's a new concept. When I say new concept, I don't mean we invented it. So please, that's my caveat. When I say it's a new concept at scale. You don't really see them in a lot of places. When you start to see this as an option in a lot of places, I think where it will end up is you will have, we will have business owners, whether they're contractors or furniture stores or catering companies, we will have them enter into longer term contracts with us that also function as month to month contracts. So I think we will protect the month to month,
Right.
but allow for a longer term stay for the business owner. I think that contract will feel more like a triple net, even though they won't be paying the triple nets, we will, but it'll be a discount to that. Then I think the true month on the other end of the spectrum, the true month to month contract, where they're not locking in their lease long term and protecting an increase in rate, I think that will, for the flexibility, I think that will cost more per square foot. I think that will take on the true, from our perspective, we're buying by the case or building by the case in this case,
Right.
and selling by the bottle. I think that flexibility of both uh, space and the lack of having to sign a long-term contract will carry a premium. Right now, it's going to sit between, it's going to cost more than self-storage and a little less than triple net. That's where we're
Of course.
rolling out. I think in 5 years from now in Greenville, if we were to do this interview again, I would be surprised if I wasn't telling you that our longer term tenants, regardless of how it's structured, will feel closer to a triple net, but at a discount.
Right.
And the short term month to month is going to feel closer on $1 per square foot to the 5x5 of retail self storage because it's smaller and there's no long term commitment to it. But I do think business, because we're talking businesses and contractors, I
Correct.
think for the most part, they're going to want to lock in the longer term for a discount, but we're always going to have units available for seasonality and for growth. We want to
Correct.
be a partner to businesses. That means we want to be
I
the
love
place
that.
where you start your business because it's affordable to start,
I love
but
that.
also where you can either seasonally or because of your growth. Russell, you started out with your father and son, plumber, one truck. Now you're a
Correct.
fleet. Now you need another 500 square feet to add to your 1,000, but you don't know if you don't want to necessarily take on a 3-year lease for another 1,000. And by the way, let's not forget finding 500 square feet or even 1,000 square feet in most markets is very difficult. It's usually
100%.
2,500 to 5,000 that you find
100%.
in
100%.
yeah.
Joe, but here's the question. Here's the question. Give me a rationale of going with a gross model versus triple net. Why not triple net?
The flexibility and also the contract. So we want to be able to be storage, month to month contract, even if we allow you to lock in a year, 2-year, 3-year rate. If we do lock in a 2-3 year rate, there'll be escalations in it. But I
Right.
understand as a business owner the need to be able to manage fixed costs like rent, at least for a period of time, and not be subject to our
Of
demand,
course.
like an Uber surge pricing. You can't do that to a business owner. We get that. So if the business owner is choosing to leave themselves exposed to a surge pricing, which we wouldn't do, but you get the point. I'm saying that to
Right.
accentuate the point. Then that's the business decision they've made. Why not the triple net? We don't have anybody working in our facility. We will, if you need to charge things overnight, we can't charge you by electric consumption or generation, they call it, but we can allow you for a fee to turn on the breaker in your unit, right? Or if you want climate control in your unit, we can turn that on and off, and that would be an additional cost to you. And there's other There's other things we could turn on and off because we're
Right.
making it pretty high tech, or at least high techable, if that's a word. But why not triple net? Because we don't need to. And on top of that, we think, we could be wrong, by the way, and don't be surprised when we roll out, the fifth or sixth one, or maybe even sooner, that if we have 90,000 square feet, maybe 30,000 of it is small bay flex with triple net leases, and the other 60 is
Right.
traditional store pro, very flexible month to month. I can absolutely see that as something we roll out in the future. But really, this all started is to try to be flexible to business owners. A lot of small business owners don't and can't get into a decision where I'm making a 3-year decision on not only a lease, but I'm absorbing utilities and their increase and taxes, most importantly, taxes. Yes, we're taking the risk there as the facility owner, but I think it aligns with being the business friendly park or facility, a place where you go to start your business and grow it and have flexibility. I fully expect to lose customers who have tremendous growth and success to go get their own 5,000 square foot or 3,000 square
Right.
foot if
Right.
they outgrow
Right.
us. And I champion that and I welcome that because there's always another business that's going to come
Of
along.
course.
We want to be that place, that incubator, if you will.
Joe, but I got to tell you, you said something so powerful. I want to repeat that. You said you want to become a partner. You want to be a partner to the business.
Yeah.
Partner to the business. It's a very different approach from trying to squeeze every penny out of the tenants. And I got to tell you that probably that will go the long way. It will definitely show up in your occupancy, and it will show up in the pride of the ownership, not only on your end but also on your tenants' end. But as an FYI, every facility I looked at by me here in Southwest Florida, everybody is converting to a triple net and is being sold as the value add opportunity to go from the gross model to a triple net. And here you are making a conscious choice not to go that route because you want to become a partner to the businesses, and you understand that on the new construction, the tax is probably going to be higher. The insurance probably going to be higher, and you being willing and able to absorb that cost and not pass through to your tenant will definitely speak, and it definitely speaks highly of you. So hats off to you on that, man. Let me shift gears a little bit, and let me approach. Let me ask a different question. We were talking about for the last better part of half hour how different and dissimilar the new asset class, the pro storage, from the self storage and the flex, traditional flex space, being a hybrid. Was there any difficulties or was there any issues with lenders understanding the concept?
Not at all.
Were they
We actually
welcoming?
we expected some challenges there. There was,
Right.
I don't recall one lender not being comfortable with the model and the concept of what we're doing.
That's
And
awesome.
it didn't hurt that we could just show them our books from Wilmington, the facility we own, and say, look, this is what happens here in this little market. And we have competition there. We're going to Greenville. We have no competition for this specific type of product. Not to say there isn't small bay flex there. There is. But this specific product, there's no competition that I know of.
So did you go to the local lenders? Did you go to through a mortgage broker? What was the approach?
We went through a mortgage broker and we ended up actually with a local lender. We ran both out, which, look, when this is new, Russell, this has been a concept in the making for over 2 years now.
Yeah.
Almost as long as we've owned the Wilmington facility.
I remember the first time you talked about it at the mastermind.
It's taken a while to get. So there's been a lot of thought, a lot of iterations, a lot of conversations, and a lot of unknowns. Had the same. Your question is a great one. We anticipated issues, so we did a shotgun approach for lenders. Went the broker route. Went the fingers crossed. Went every other direction we could, and including we had guys putting us in front of life companies and we're just not there yet. The size of the loan is, but the operation isn't. If anything, they weren't ready because it was so new. They weren't, the bigger institutional lenders weren't ready yet. They basically said, we love it. Come back to us. It wasn't about the concept. It was about us and only one, and first and that. So it's more about who we were as the sponsor
Right.
than the
Right.
concept itself. But your question's on point because we anticipated the same thing, and we're pleasantly surprised there was never pushback on the product. It was only
Awesome.
if pushback on us
Awesome.
as
Good
the
to know.
borrower.
Which brings me to the next question. Can you outline for me the next 5 years for Bellrose in terms of pro storage and the growth that you anticipate of this particular asset?
Well, this is what are we, mid-December? The next, we expect to get our CO. We're on track right now in May. I'm not sure when in May. So let's just give us to the end of May and call it June 1st. So the next 6 months are critical to the next 5 years. If we lease up quickly, funny story, one of my major investors called me this morning on my way to the office, and he's been a guy who has been very adamant that, because we've got the next piece of dirt already under contract, but we don't have to start building there yet. It's a couple more, zoning hoops to jump through.
Right.
Not really hoops to jump through, just
Right.
I's to dot and T's to cross. But he wants to make sure all goes well with lease up. The proof of concept is in place before we even break ground on the next one. Makes total sense.
Makes sense.
He's been the governor on this whole thing because we've got companies that guys like Thad and Barry Sherman out there, property after
Rock and
property.
rolling. Yeah.
They've got all kinds of properties that'll work for this. And what's funny about all this is the very governor on this whole thing called me this morning saying, "Hey, look, when's our next one? I don't want to lose any momentum on this." Because he must be talking to people and he's seeing what's going on. And because we even had brokers from the Greenville area, commercial real estate brokers, iOS and Flex guys come to our groundbreaking, and they said, "We need 3 times as much as you're building here, at least." And they're super excited about it. So everyone's seeing this momentum behind this. And what was just in the irony of ironies, I've got the guy who's beating me up to make sure we dot I's and cross T's before we take any more risk
Now
is at the
pushing you to
same
do
time
more.
kicking my ass to make sure that we've got, 3 or 4 or 5 more sites ready to go so we don't lose momentum. I'm like, Michael, listen. And he did have the awareness to say, I realize I'm the one that's telling you to slow down. Thank
Well,
you.
it's cool. Listen, there's definitely wins in your back. There's definitely an acceptance of the asset in the marketplace, and there's definitely a need for that. There's definitely a need for that in the market, and I think what you have on your hands right now is very special. I love the name. I told you. I
Yeah.
think it's very sticky. I think it tells you exactly what it is, and it's something that's going to be on everybody's mind for a long time in a very short period of time. Like we used to say before Google. There was no like Google it.
Yeah.
Then Google it became Google it. So now, there is no pro storage per se, but now it's pro storage, and hopefully it's going to catch the fire and start getting acceptance and become more widespread and becoming the asset on its own in its own right, just like self storage and the flex space. Joe, I can ask you questions, man, for another hour. Honestly, I think not number one, you're a very good guest. Your answers are very elaborate and you're not trying to hide anything. You tell us exactly how it is. Number two, your willingness to share, which is relatively new niche within
Well,
self storage or flex space. So niche within the niche, kind of. It goes perfect with what we're trying to accomplish on this podcast. Basically, give our audience an opportunity to learn about new things, to learn about niches, to learn about people taking charge and trying to pioneer different things and right in front of their eyes. But being respectful of your time, and with you promising me to come back shortly, so we can do part 2 of this because there's just so much more to
I would love
uncover.
to. I would love to.
Awesome, man. I'm gonna ask you a few more questions, like
Yeah.
a rapid fire questions before
Mhm.
I let you go. Um, Number one, tell me about a book or a mentor that helped shape your thinking. Because I know you're a super successul guy. I mean, you come across as a regular average Joe, which you're not.
Oh, I am.
You're a coolest guy, and we know each other for a number of years already, and I hear your presentation on different subject, and I have nothing but respect for you. But tell me, who was the most influential mentor to you, or was it a book that helped shape who you are right now in terms of business?
There's so many people, but there's also so many books. The one in vogue for me right now, I've been the most excited about. I just finished it and I'm going to listen to it again, because anytime I get a great book, I need to listen to it 2 and 3 times, because you can't possibly get
100%.
everything the first time.
100%.
So I'm going to go with the book. That's at no disrespect to anyone who's been a mentor. Be Your Future Self Now. I'm 4 years late in reading it. I just discovered it
Be your
recently.
future self now.
Be Your Future Self Now. It's by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who co-authored Who Not How and An X is Better Than 2X with Dan Sullivan, and other books. This book, Russell, have you heard of Mr. Beast?
Correct. Oh,
Everyone
yeah.
knows who he is. I only know
Of
who he is
course.
because of I have teenage boys and they watch that inane stuff. And he does, as you know, anything from just really stupid to crazy YouTube or stuff on YouTube to charitable to really amazingly awesome stuff. But that's all I knew about him. I didn't know anything about him. The entire premise of the book is he's the beginning of the book, and how he
Oh,
became
really?
so famous is not what you would think. And it is a lesson we all need to
What is it?
learn and to put into practice. And it's so simple. And we've heard it
What is it?
all. We've heard it all a million times before, but no one's ever put it this way. And that's what Ben Hardy does a phenomenal job doing, is explaining what Mr. Beast, Jimmy Donaldson, he was a high school kid. He was a 17-year-old kid who did this. He did something in a way no one's ever done before. And Ben Hardy describes it in a way that's never been described before, at least for me. And it is so powerful. That's why I'm preaching that message more than anything anywhere right now.
Awesome. Actually, I watched a podcast about Mr. Beast. He was a guest of the podcast, and he said a lot of people trying to do what I do, but I can promise you one thing: nobody can outwork me. Nobody can outwork me. So this guy works very, very, very hard. I mean, he deserves it.
That's because of what he did when he was 17, inadvertently, by the way. I think if he was, I'd love to interview him, because I think if he was pressed on when that night, there was one particular night he did something that changed his life forever. If you pressed him on what his goals were, his intentions were that night, I think he'd be lying if he said it was to do A, B, C, X, Y, or Z. You can even tell if you watch the videos, he doesn't really understand why he's doing what he's doing. But because he did it, and I'm leaving the cliffhanger for you, because he did it.
I'm waiting for the answer, and I'm not getting it.
You got to read the book.
I'm waiting for the answer.
Just read the intro or the first chapter or whatever. It's in the beginning of the book. What he did that
put it on my list.
Is what made him who he is today. But my point is that I think he inadvertently did it. And it's incredible. It's just an incredible story, and it's what we all should be doing in some form or fashion.
Awesome. My next question to you is, what would be a best advice Joe Downs can give to his 25-year-old self, if you can go back? Makes you think.
What my 25-year-old self did not know, that besides like wisdom and knowledge about, specific things, was what I'm trying to say is I would make sure my 25-year-old self did not have any or reduced any limiters, any self inflicted limitations, any beliefs that I shouldn't be believing, or things that I can't do or shouldn't, or I don't know how to do, or I'm fumbling this answer. I know what I want to say, but I'm not articulating it very well. But I think I had preconceived notions about what I could and couldn't do. And in that, and I would go back and tell myself, no, just go ask that person. Just ask for help. Tell them you want to be in real estate. I didn't get into real estate for, 11, 12 years, 13, 14 years, maybe arguably, after I really wanted to. And there's no reason for that but me and my own self-limiting beliefs. I would have that conversation with myself. It's not even about knowledge, because I could then go obtain all the knowledge I wanted that I have today.
Joe, I promise you, a lot of people watching right now are either feeling the same way or being where you're at when you were 25. And a lot of people putting their walls around themselves in that box And that's a self-inflicted wound, basically, self-limiting beliefs.
It is, but I'll
That,
tell you, nobody has the excuse that we did when we were that age, because they have podcasts like this. And on podcasts like this, you get to hear from people who have been knocked down, beaten up, and gotten back up and fought and done and whatever. And we didn't have that, Russell. We're roughly the same age. We
yeah.
didn't have that when we were 25. There were no
Well,
podcasts. There were
that's
no
why we do.
webinars, right?
That's why we do it, right?
Yeah.
That's why we do what we do. Joe, last question, buddy, before I let you go. If you could have a dinner with any real estate person in the world, who would it be and why?
Ooh, any real estate person.
Yes.
A dinner with any real estate person. Ray Kroc.
Well, I know why. But that's different, actually, because I usually ask my guests that question at the end because it's kind of a funny question, but yet it's a very serious question. But tell me why.
Well, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't even know the names of Blackstone or, even local, Jerry Sweeney's a local Philly guy who's the CEO of Brandywine Realty Trust, which is publicly traded. I would love to have lunch or coffee with him. But what Ray Kroc did wasn't just about real estate. It was about business and using the business to buy the real estate. And in a lot of ways, interestingly enough, that's what we do in self-storage, right? So I would love to know the genesis of where that idea came from and how he grew it and how he sold it and how, to me, like, that's a pioneer.
Another
That's
pioneer. And I was going to say that. Another pioneer. Joe, thank you very much. I can't thank you enough for coming in on a podcast, sharing your wisdom with us. And definitely hoping to have you back as a guest sometime soon. Tell the audience, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you? Where can they find you?
Yeah. Best is just email, Russell. Joe at bellroseam.com. I'll spell it. It's BELROSE. A as an asset, M as in management.com. I answer emails. I don't get a lot of them, but I answer them.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna put the links down below. Once again, Joe, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out, buddy. And I want to thank everybody for watching it and looking forward to have you back soon, buddy.
Thanks, Russell. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.